You made it. You came back, or you just found me. If you found me just now, cool. Hey, I'm Kristen. This is Vomiting Rainbows, where I talk about all of the fun stuff that slaps you in the face, because life isn't all rainbows, lollipops, and unicorns, although that'd be fun if it was. So we're gonna vomit rainbows here and discuss all of the fun stuff that's not those things. Side note, I have a very favorite saying, and I'd love to know if you have a very favorite saying or a motto or an affirmation or something that you live by, something that has always stuck with you. Mine is the birth of this channel, and it's really funny because this is my favorite saying, but I always mess it up, so don't laugh at me, or go ahead and laugh at me because that's okay too. See if I say it right. You cannot have a rainbow without the rain. I said it right. Hey. I said it right. Okay. And it's true. You know, we all know that. There can't be any rainbows without the rain. So we like to recognize the rainy parts, the rainy seasons of our life on this channel. One of the topics that absolutely has to be talked about is recovery after recovery. What? Recovery after recovery. Or recovery while recovering? Anyways, what I mean by that is this is the stuff that people don't really talk about while you're recovering. We all know that the first step in recovery from any form of addiction, whether that's like drugs or alcohol, sex, gambling, anything else that's addictive, because we know that there's phones scrolling, tons of things that are actually quite addictive for our human brains, that we have to recognize, right? So we know the first step for recovery is always recognizing, admitting there's a problem, recognizing what the problem is. That can take years. It can take just a little smidgy of time. It really depends on your own personality, right? And then I think after that, we all know the recovery process to be very different individually. Some people choose to join groups, find lots of group support. Some people choose to do individual therapy. Some people choose to do personal journeys. Some people choose 12-step programs that are a lot more structured. There's all different ways to start your recovery journey, and there's all different resources and support groups, no matter where you're at. But that part is the most obvious part. That's the part that everybody talks about, the part that movies are made about, the part that your friends talk about, the part that your family might have shared with you. These are where the stories come from, and this is sometimes the inspiration that people get as well. But in between those is this whole other layer, and that whole other layer is very untalked about. And I feel that it's actually quite a dangerous period because it doesn't make a lot of sense. So while we're in recovery from whatever it is, your body is regulating itself in several different functions. One of the main parts of your body is your nervous system. That part also has to regulate as well. A lot of times with addiction comes some form of chaos, whether that is a home life, the mental chaos that it causes, the physical chaos that it can cause. But once your body has lived in a state of chaos for long enough, it becomes used to that almost. It becomes a normalized function so that your body copes with it in particular ways. We all know about the fight or flight response. And with that is adrenal hormones that go throughout the body and help our somatic and parasympathetic nervous system. I think these are kind of big words. But anyhow, so these nervous systems all work together. When we're in a state of chaos or in a state of addiction where it causes some form of chaos in our life, we're in a state of fight or flight, or freeze or fawn. There's like 4 of them, but it's known as fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, your body is in a survival mode, right? So it has particular things that it shuts down, so that and then heart rate raises. We all know what fight or flight is, okay? So when your body gets used to being in that fight or flight kind of chaotic response, whether that's chemically from what you're ingesting or the home life, the addiction, whatever, all of the above, once you've been in that state for long enough, your body regulates and normalizes kind of at that level. Like, it's still not good for your body and is still going to cause damage, but this is the level that it's at and this is the level that it's going to keep going. What we don't talk about is after. After that has been taken away, after the chaos has been taken out, after we have started detoxing our bodies, after that physical chemical reaction has stopped in the body and is now starting to regulate, this is the part we don't talk about. And it's kind of crazy because there's this whole other phase that we go through that is depressive. It can leave you extremely anxious. It can completely screw up your sleep cycles, not to mention your eating and your appetite, right? So there can be a period of time after you put yourself on that train of choo-choo, here we go, we're moving on out of addiction, and you're getting through it. And you've got 30 days, you've got 60 days, 90 days, like whatever, a week, 1 hour. Actually, I'm not talking about the 1 hour type time. This usually comes a good couple of months after you have been fully sober, in recovery, and you're really diving into the root of what has caused the addiction in the first place. Once you're like comfy there, it seems like that should be it, right? That seems like, okay, I know the problem. I've got my self-help. I'm doing the things. I'm being consistent. So why do I still feel depressed? Why am I so anxious? It is literally your nervous system that is regulating, among other chemicals that are also regulating in your body. So I want you to know if this is you, if you have recovered, or excuse me, I don't actually think that's the right term, recovered. I don't think that there's a recovered. I think it's recovery. And you just continue on the recovery route. So excuse that. If this is you and you're in recovery, no matter if this is 1 month, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, or more, and you are now facing this period of time where you are depressed, you're having some sleeping problems, the moods are not matching, please be patient with yourself. Because this is going to move at a different speed of this. A totally, totally different speed. I have a super creaky table. Can you hear that? I should make a Halloween podcast, yeah. And she opened the door to see darkness and a creepy ghost. Okay, anyways. This isn't to take away from anything that I talked about, and I'm just kind of goofy, but in all reality, this is a really difficult time. And I think that it's also very unrelatable to a lot of people who do not have addiction problems, and have not walked this walk, because like I said, it seems obvious. You figured out the problem, you're doing the things, you're in therapy, and you're being consistent, and you're on that path. 1 + 1 should equal 2. But there's a half step between the 1 + 1, guys. After that, there's this whole other part that we also need to chat about, chit chat. So that part is a little difficult, and that just takes time. I have seen, read, heard, although I am not going to source anything because, I encourage you to do your own research. But I have seen that this can last for a couple of years. So if you are sleeping, 10 hours a day and not understanding, and we're going down the depression train, keep up with the therapy. Keep up with writing. Keep up with being honest with yourself. Keep up with, this is a feeling that has come up. Instead of reacting, we're going to go ahead and figure out why it's caused us to feel this way in the first place, which often that's the step that's missed with people who have addictions, is the feeling and then the root cause of it and then what we can do about it, right? I know I numbed a lot with having addiction. So that was definitely a step in between that was missed very often. The second part of this is definitely after you've healed and done all of these things, the other weird thing that people don't talk about is, so it's like the first time that you heal, whether it's trauma, this can even be trauma. So the first time that you heal an addiction or trauma, it's almost a surface level in that it is already a traumatizing situation if you think about it. So I mean, obviously if it's trauma, then it was traumatizing. If it's addiction and we're coming to this point where we're saying, okay, we need to stop, then that's also traumatic. It's traumatic to us and it's traumatic to everybody around us. So I am talking for both of these things, both of these two topics that I've talked about is regarding trauma and addiction. So once we've gone through and the first time we've healed this trauma or this addiction, it's really at a very surface level because of what we've already faced. You're already going to have some kind of walls or boundary up, no matter how hard you try. Let's be really, really, really honest, because there's guilt, there's shame that goes along with all of these things. So you do build up a teensy wall. And behind that wall, you do your healing. You do a lot of healing, okay? However, I have found this to be true more often than not, and please let me know if you guys have the same thing happen to you or not. The universe is going to bring that back up. Universe, God, source, spirit, whatever you say, whatever you want to call it, it's going to come back up. It's going to present itself again to you. And it's going to ask you, are you ready to heal this on a deeper level? Because the first time you healed it was fantastic and we're so proud of you. But here's the problem again. It's right in front of your face. How do you want to deal with this? How much have you healed? And that's going to keep coming up. I really want you to be aware of that. And when you recognize it as an opportunity and not a setback, that's part of knowing that you've done some really good healing work, right? Let's think about that again. When you recognize it as an opportunity and not a setback, that's where you do the deepest healing. Because we often forget we are still human. Our addictions and our trauma still live in here on a cellular level, and the body is not going to forget it. And you're going to have a physical response, whether that's your heart beating really fast, you start to be a little bit out of breath, maybe a little bit shaky, a little tiny bit sweaty palms, or maybe none of that at all and it's all internalized, but then it comes out later as a headache. So be gentle on yourself for both of these two things. It is extremely important that you keep trusting yourself because you know you best. You really do. There's nobody that knows you better. And if you want to be really honest, write it down. If you're feeling a certain sort of way and it makes you feel guilty for saying it out loud, write it down. If you're afraid of somebody ever seeing it, burn it. Send that shit off into the universe. say bye-bye. Oh! So, the biggest two things for today are things that people have never, no, I shouldn't say that. Things that people rarely speak about when it comes to recovery. The recovery while in recovery. That process is different for everybody. Remembering that your body is out of fight or flight, but now we're trying to regulate our system, and that's possibly going to take a couple of years. I have seen 2 to 5 years, not to scare anybody because everyone's different, but I definitely had a 2-year time period where I would sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep. And I was very depressed. That's extremely normal, and it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean you're going backwards. This is part of the process. This is the part that nobody talks about. So there's that. And then please don't forget that the first time you healed this trauma, it was on surface level. It was on a traumatic surface level. This is a huge change in your life. No matter how big or small you think it is, any form of addiction or trauma is huge in your life. Physically, mentally, spiritually, okay? It's gonna come back up again. The universe is going to ask you if you want to heal it on a deeper level so that you can finally close that chapter. And you know what? It might open up again, but there's going to be at least a second time for this to be your, remember, opportunity to heal. So remember those 2 things. I love you guys very, very much. You're doing a fantastic job. We're going to talk more on this. I would love to do this in a sort of series and add on to this. If you have any things that people don't tell you while recovering and in recovery, I would love to hear them, because we're all here for each other. And the more that we realize that we are not alone in all of these weird steps, even. No, I'm not talking about 12-step program. I'm talking about those in-between steps and the big steps too. We're all in it together. These are the things that people don't talk about. And you have a safe place here. You are loved. You are safe. And I'm proud of you. Have a fantastic weekend. Also, it's almost Halloween. I got my nails done. Anyways, okay. Now I'm just rambling, so